I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I now live. I would also like to honour and pay my respects to elders both past, present and future, and also extend this to all other Indigenous Australians. Together we acknowledge the contributions of Indigenous Australians and non-Indigenous Australians to the education of all children and people in this country we all live in and share together. I'd also like to warn viewers that some footage may contain images of deceased persons. I live in the small country town of Warwick. It is predominantly rural and is home to some beautiful natural environments. As I woke up this morning, I took in the surroundings that I can see from my bedroom window. I see the gum trees that stand just behind my house fence, swaying in the autumn breeze. I see a small mob of kangaroos grazing through the paddock that lies just beyond my back fence. For as long as I can see, there is no man-made interruptions, just an untouched and stunning view. I've never really paused to appreciate and really take in my surroundings. I realise I am incredibly lucky, and it is easy to understand why the Indigenous people have such a strong connection and relationship to the country. This then leads me to wonder what sort of Indigenous history this land holds, so I immediately begin my research. I discovered that the first people of the Warwick area were the Ngarrabul people and the Gadaba people. I am shocked that this is not common knowledge to many locals in my area, so I set out to find some trace of the Gadaba and the Ngarrabul people. I walked down the whole main street. I explored the art gallery and many other places, but I am left extremely disappointed. It is not until I find myself walking along the Condamine River that I spot Tiddalik the frog. I had completely forgotten that the legend of Australian Aboriginal mythology stood proudly in the nearby park. While this does not specifically relate back to the first people of the Warwick area, it does relate to the first people of Australia as a whole. By this point, I was relieved to find some remnant of Indigenous culture within the community. I cannot help but feel a twinge of guilt. I feel ashamed. How can we expect to stop discrimination if we do not educate people on the traditional owners of the land and just the Indigenous culture in itself? I was blindly and naively contributing to this marginalisation. My lack of knowledge is completely to blame. Now frustrated, I return to the main street, and suddenly I am no longer oblivious to the concrete footpaths, the endless amount of buildings, and the presence of man-made structures. I long to be back at my house, located just out of town, where I'm not suffocated by the growing urbanisation. Warwick is not a big city by any means, but the centre of town is definitely a change from the farm I live on. I feel like there is a sense of injustice that has taken place. Captain James Cook invaded the land many years ago, taking it from the Indigenous people. Now years later, and I still struggle to see how this has been rectified. It takes a lot more than a National Sorry Day to make up for everything we've denied them and taken away from them. I feel overwhelmed with emotions and the thought of what could have been if things were done differently back then. Imagine a different world we would live in if the Europeans had compromised and worked with the Indigenous people. Imagine a world without marginalisation, discrimination, racism, and one that is proud of the diverse history of cultures within a community. That's a world I'd like to live in, and one that I sincerely hope is in the not-so-distant future.